Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pen Tester Recruiter podcast. I'm joined by my good friend today, Patrick Gorman. How you doing, Patrick?
Good. How are you, Tom? Everything
Good.
good?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well, thank you, my friend. I'm actually really looking forward to this one because you've got, I'm not just saying it, but you've got good communication skills. You've got the YouTube channel. You're a
Mhm.
very technical guy. I think this is going to be good for really giving the community a lot of self-development gains. I'm excited. I know you're very used to this kind of thing. Yeah, should be cool. No
Yeah,
pressure.
man. Ask away.
No
And
pressure.
anything I can do and ask any questions, I'm full of a lot of information.
Yeah.
So just ask away. If I don't know it, I'll say I don't know. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, cool. So just to give Patrick a bit of introduction for the listeners. Currently, Patrick's the Director of Offensive Security at Cloud Computing Concepts, otherwise known as C3. Patrick also has his own YouTube channel, which has got around 30,000 subscribers, called InfoSec Pat, which I'm sure we'll be talking about later. Been a CTO in the past, been a network security manager, so done all sorts. Got about 65 different certifications on his LinkedIn profile, by the way. So I've done you a bit of an intro there, Patrick, but I can never do it as well as you. So I think we'll probably start with who are you and what we've been up to.
yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, so that was a good intro. I work as a director of offensive security, and I also do some stuff at night, like when it's on my off time, like making YouTube videos, teaching classes, doing some blue teaming stuff as well. Wherever I can help, I'm pretty much there, and I try to do my best at that. And yeah, just that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Like
Yeah.
outside of the whole IT cybersecurity space, like I enjoy going to the gym, playing hockey. I'm a big sports guy, so that's pretty much where I like to spend a lot of my time. Especially right now in the US, it's the NHL playoffs. So hockey is, like I said, is huge for me. So it's a big time of the year after work. What I get into is just watching some of the playoffs right now. Yeah, that's my
Cool.
fun.
Cool. Sounds like you're pretty busy, my man. Sounds like you're quite busy. Just to give the listeners a bit of an overview. So, me and Patrick had a bit of a chat off air. There's loads of different ways we could spin this episode up. Perhaps we'll do a part two at some point because there's loads of different angles we can go. But we came to the conclusion that we're going to talk about AD, Active Directory pen testing, how to get good at it. We're going to talk about social engineering, and we're going to talk about physical pen testing engagements as well. Patrick, I thought a good place to start was Active Directory pen testing. I know it's an area where there's a lot of vulnerabilities. I know it's an area where a lot of pen testers are trying to up their game. Fairly big question, but in terms of getting from zero to an advanced level of AD pen testing, what's your kind of thoughts and tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's just getting your own hands on, I think it's best to always start at, I guess it all depends on your budget, right? I'm gonna go as broke as a joke because I'd rather go with the free resources than going to spend money when you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening to this, you probably have a laptop, right? So if you have a laptop with maybe 16 gigs of memory, hopefully 32 gigs, because today RAM is so super cheap, what you can do is set up VirtualBox or VMware Workstation with a Kali Linux machine. And I have a lot of videos on this on my channel as well. And then setting up a Active Directory environment, right? So it's super critical these days to understand Active Directory. And before we hack it, we have to understand what is Active Directory, right? People think they know it. People say, yeah, I've been managing AD for many moons, but all they really do is go into Active Directory's users and computers and create a few objects, create a few groups, and say they know AD. That's just the same thing as computer management, right? If you go into your local computer management, what is the difference? There is no difference in that sense if you just go in and add and use your computers. Obviously, a lot of organizations utilize this for centralized management. So this is a database that sits in your environment for users, computers, containers, objects, etc. So that's from the sysadmin perspective. Now, as an adversary or as a hacker or a pen tester, what can we do if we have King Kong rights, meaning domain admin rights or enterprise admin rights. Once we own your domain, we can move schemas around, we can move FSMOs around, we can do a lot of stuff in your environment, or we can just create another domain admin and just leave it there for persistence. So any kind of pen test, usually on an internal assessment, 99% of the objective, 99% of the time, the objective is to get DA credentials or DA rights or DA access. If that's maybe getting a hash, running responder, and we'll get into some of the tools in a bit, like getting the hash from a domain admin account and then using that user and that hash with something with like crack map exec, pass it around using a technique called pass the hash. Now let's take a step back as an adversary, as a hacker. If I'm in your environment, I don't know Tom's DC name. I don't know Joe Blow's DC. I'm just sitting in your environment. Where's the DC? Yes, if you're in a Windows environment, you can do like maybe an NS lookup and set space type equals A to see if your local DNS server, and normally your local DNS server is running Active Directory domain services. Normally, they can be an exception, and then once you do that, you can run a command. You can run more commands, right? See your logon servers, do some of that reconnaissance to your environment for your AD. Now we have the domain, right? It's tom.com, right? So now what we can do is end up doing some domain enumeration, gathering some of the information, getting some of the objects of another domain controller, right? I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of how to do that. We'll be here for 12 hours. But yeah, and then you can just use different kinds of techniques and PowerShell scripts to see what kind of policies are running on your domain environment. And now we can start using commands like get net domain or net domain controller to see what domain controllers are sitting in your environment, to see if it's a global catalog. And what is a global catalog? This just says it can write that data across your domain controllers and across your AD forest, right? I know I'm going down a rabbit hole. A lot of information.
No, Patrick, that was great. And by the way, when Patrick was talking, then for everyone listening, I was taking notes. And I think for anyone listening, it's really strongly advisable to take notes. And thank you for that answer, because it was just packed full of information. I'm just going to pull a few things out of that. So you really mentioned the importance of understanding an Active Directory and understanding the underlying database. This might be me being presumptuous, but do you think hackers, pen testing guys and girls, maybe have a tendency to jump straight in and jump ahead without understanding the nitty-gritty of the ins and outs of how an AD works?
I can't answer for everyone. I know a few folks. I know probably two personally and one or virtually on the interwebs that went from a plumber to a pen tester. One was actually a plumber. And maybe you guys know, I think his name is Joe for TCM Security, Joe the mayor. I think he was a mayor. Now he's worked for TCM as a pen tester. So there's definitely avenues, but I guess it all depends on how much work you want to put in. I think, me personally, if I didn't go the route I went down, this field would have been a lot more difficult for me. Having that understanding of, if we're talking about Active Directory, having the understandings of the ins and outs gives me that leverage of how to compromise or how to abuse different services, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just my input. I don't think it's not impossible. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because it's definitely possible, but
yeah, Patrick, do you think, though, if we're just talking about Active Directory specifically, do you think, I got from the first part of the answer that understanding the ins and outs of how an AD works is really important? Do you think people would tend to want to jump in and try and hack it before they fully understand it, which could be detrimental to their progress when it comes to specifically hacking ADs?
Exactly. I believe that. I believe that for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I know what I'm like. Obviously, I'm a pen tester recruiter, not a pen tester, but I know, like, most people I meet are quite similar. We're all quite obsessive. We all just want we want to go from like 0 to 100 like straight away. So I can imagine what I'd be like. I'd be like, I'm just going to do it, and I probably wouldn't take the time to fully understand the ins and outs of how an AD works. And I think from what you're saying, if I'm right, if you don't understand the ins and outs, you're not going to be able to hack it and find the vulnerabilities as effectively. What do you think the best ways of understanding how an AD works? Is there any particular learning resources you go to, or have you got a methodology for stripping things back, or
just to learn AD?
to learn the ins and outs of an AD? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you don't really have to go for certifications these days for this. Maybe back in the day, you can go for like the MCSE, MCITP from Microsoft to be understanding like a server admin, enterprise admin. But I think the best way to do it is build it yourself, because when you build it and you actually tinker with it, you break it or whatever happens, you have the understanding of what you did prior and what the change you made in order to break it so you can revert those changes. Learn how to IP address a server. It's not only about Active Directory. What is DNS? How it really works. When you join a computer to a domain, what is it really looking for? What is it doing when it calls to what's called a ticketing server, right? The TGT, ticket granting services or whatever. It's granting that token that's authenticating you to Active Directory. And that's when they say pass the token and capture the token and get the hash with these tools like Responder, etc. But I think having that experience, building your own server, building your own environment is definitely key. Yeah, you can use services like Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, and all that stuff. But that's sitting in their environment. I think it's like when I was doing for Cisco certifications. We can use Cisco Packet Tracer, GNS3, Eve NG, all these virtual tools, right? Simulators and emulators. But there's something different when I have my rack of switches and routers, when I have to hear the click, when I have to hook it up to my laptop, tunnel into it, or SSH or Telnet into it, or whatever, or use COM3, whatever we're doing to configure it. I think it connects the dots a little better than just having this thing in La La Land and just configuring it through the virtual air. So I don't know. I think that's just the way I feel. I'd like to have that hands-on, getting dirty with it. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, no,
I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel that teaches you about Active Directory, more from the sysadmin perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks, Patrick. You've given us so much info there. I was going to ask you about the channel. It probably really obvious to spot them, but which videos on the channel would be best for that?
So I have two different playlists. I have Windows Server 2019 that teaches you how to build a server infrastructure from the bottom up. And then Windows Server 2022. I just updated that a few months ago.
Okay. Cool. Brilliant. So just a few more things to strip down there. So basically, build the Active Directory, build it yourself. You cannot replace that. We've also watched those YouTube channels, download VirtualBox. And you just touched upon something on enumeration. What were you saying there again, Patrick, about enumeration when it comes to AD?
Yeah, so just enumerating, you can from domain enumeration, you can just utilize some of the tools, some of the basic PowerShell scripts, right? Get net domain. We can use PowerView. We can use Active Directory module, which is get AD domain. There's so many, just domain enumeration with PowerShell and just using Nmap as well, right? Just like scanning to see what ports are open, see if LDAP is running, see if port 53 DNS is running. What looks pretty obvious that it's a domain controller.
Brilliant. And by the way, don't apologize for giving these long answers. This is great. I love it. This is brilliant. We've naturally just mentioned a few already, but in terms of the best tool for pen testing ADs, what would you say the go-to toolkit is?
That's a good question. So we can use Responder. That's going to capture the hashes, LTLM v2, v1 hashes. Bloodhound is going to go ahead and enumerate Active Directory. Crack Map Exec, we're going to go ahead and use this. Evil WinRM. Just trying to think off the top of my head. It's so many different tools, right?
Yeah, that's loads.
Yeah. So once we have the hash, for example, we'll use like John the Ripper to crack that LTLM hash. We can use what other tools? I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Yeah, that Power View is another PowerShell. Mimikatz is another one. I think I said Sharphound that can invoke the user, so you can ingest that into Bloodhound. Priv Exec Master, RSAT tools. There's just so many.
Yeah, no, thanks, Patrick. And if any more spring to mind, by the way, during the episode, feel free just to blurt them out at me, because that would be great. But no, you've given us loads there. Thanks, Patrick. I know before we spoke about, obviously, you've got some good videos on your YouTube channel when it comes to hacking ADs. I know off air we spoke about TCM, the Cyber Mentor. He's got some good stuff. Is there anything that you think is particularly great in terms of his tutorials?
Yeah, I haven't watched all because I do have his practical ethical hacking course, and he has a whole section in Active Directory hacking, and I think it's pretty cool. I don't think I completed every single thing, but I did watch some of his stuff. I think it's very good, and so I think it's definitely informative for someone that's trying to learn. I actually got the course for the PMPT certification, but yeah, that's definitely some good stuff.
Just another question, Patrick, just randomly springing to mind. How long should it take to build your own AD environment?
Realistically, like, it shouldn't take more than maybe an hour.
Okay.
Because that's just getting your Active Directory up, having a domain controller, and then maybe I would say 1 day to have your full infrastructure. What do I mean by full infrastructure? I would say like an AD server, a file server, because normally in a real environment, some small businesses will run their file server on their domain controller, but normally you have those on different servers. So you can make a small file server, add that to your domain, and then maybe 2 clients, 2 Windows 10 or 2 Windows 11 VMs. And that's 4 total. And installing Windows probably takes 15, 20 minutes, if that. Then joining to the domain takes another 2 to 3 minutes. So I would say maybe 2 to 4 hours to have your whole environment up, if you're diligent, right? If you're just sitting down, just focused. So from soup to nuts, it takes probably 4 hours.
No watching hockey in between, eh? And Patrick, would you say, just from conversations I have on a day-to-day basis, I hear that these in an AD environment, is it an exaggeration to say that they're pretty much always vulnerable, or would you agree with that?
If it's what? I'm sorry?
Would you say Active Directories are pretty much, there's always vulnerabilities there in most of the time?
Yeah, so there's always, even if you have a hardened environment, like you're fully patched, you have a good patch management. Remember, if there's no CVEs out there, then we can start abusing services, right? The services are going to be there. Yeah, you can remediate some of the services. You can take some of the services offline or whatever. But normally you're going to be susceptible to something because, you're not going to always have success. Like, I've been on engagements that, I was able to spray and pray and then pass a local privileged user around, but he only had access to 1 server. And you do have those times. The blue team won, they caught us or whatever. They have their CrowdStrike, or they have their Huntress, they have their NDR, XDR, EDR, whatever, that's going to catch the attacks that we're trying to pull off. But it's not always going to be a payday. That's for sure.
Okay. So there'll always be something there, but not necessarily full-blown exploitation, but there should always be something there.
Yeah, because say, for an example, it all depends on the length of the engagement as well. Because I've been into an engagement where, as though like I wasn't able to compromise their AD or compromise anything, what I had ended up doing is move into social engineering. And I like to talk. I enjoy shooting the stuff. And obviously the world of the internet, a lot of people put a lot of stuff out there. So using that to my advantage, using different techniques, and you can use GoFish, you can use this, create your own little phishing campaigns and your own landing pages, and sending this off and using NGRock or whatever the hell NRock. I don't know how to say that word, but what it does, it has like its own web server sitting on your own machine, so you can pass through the firewall, So now I can create a link that's maybe with GoFish or whatever kind of fishing campaign I'm using locally. And I can send this to Tom across the ocean. He can click on it. I can harvest his credentials. So with that being said, now I can use those credentials and try to log on onto the domain because I wasn't successful with the tools that I was able to utilize. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so definitely utilize recon and
OSINT.
recon. Yeah, exactly. And social engineering. And I suppose that's where the length of engagement comes in as well. If you're pinging out phishing links,
Exactly.
you need to be on the engagement for a certain length of time. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool, brilliant. Okay, next question. Which certifications do you reckon are most beneficial when it comes to AD pen testing?
That's a good question. So I think if it's strictly for AD, I haven't taken this, so don't quote me, folks. But from my due diligence, it's the CRTP, Certified Red Team Professional. It's like attacking and defending against AD. I heard that's really good if you're trying to get into AD hacking. Obviously, the PMPT is a good one too. Excuse me, because it's not only AD, you're doing a full blown quote unquote pen test. From my understanding, you go from the outside, you get some credentials, you work your way in, and then you just do a domain compromise. The OSCP, I guess, is a good one today because they're integrating more of Active Directory. I don't know about the EJPT. I know there's the Certified Red Team Operator, CRTO. That's another one. But that's all the ones that I know off the top of my head as far as AD. Yeah, you can go into OSEP, Advanced Penetration Testing from OffSec. But I think that's more of like invasion and under the radar, doing stuff like that. I don't think that's so much about pen testing AD.
Yeah, what I'm seeing as well from a recruitment perspective is a lot of smaller smaller, lower level hacking companies, if you like. I think they're really starting to value the likes of CRTO, CRT, PMPT. I think the larger corporates, it just takes so long for it to filter through. It's OSCP or see you later. But I think a lot of the smaller firms, they're really starting to clock onto the fact that there is other options in addition to OSCP that add serious value and show that you know what you're doing.
And the thing is, like the OSCP, I think, unless you have the funds, this is just my opinion. Everyone has their own opinion, but I think it's a little bit of a waste of money just to have those acronyms or letters behind your name. There's so many better, more cheaper, better bang for your buck. That's the saying. I was like, a better bang for your buck. Unless your company is paying for your OSCP, that's what if someone said, I need to have the OSCP to work here, my response would be, okay, if you offer me the job, if I don't have this in the next 3 months or whatever, then get rid of me. But the reason why I don't have it is because I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not a CTF guy. We're not doing CTFs here. We're doing real hacks, right? So even when I was studying for OSCP, it was very CTF-y. And I hate CTFs. I'm not a big fan of CTFs. Yes, I'll do them. I enjoy them because it's always like fun to get it together with some mates and just hack away. But I'm not going to sit there. John Hammock, he's awesome. He loves CTFs. He loves all that stuff. It's not me. It's not my thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, Patrick, that's consistent with what I hear when I've spoke to other people, even just on the pod. And I think it's the easiest way to describe it. I think OSCP is the ultimate HR buster. It's the ultimate kind of bang a door down across loads of different companies. But I think in line with what you've just said and what other people have just said, and from offline conversations I have, there are better certifications. But I think the market just takes so long to adjust because OSCP was the king, or
exactly.
It just takes so long for companies to move, and it takes even longer, I think, for HR departments, or if companies aren't necessarily cybersecurity or offensive security centric. I think it's going to take them seriously a very long time to move. So yeah,
no, you're right.
Cool. CEH Master. I know we spoke about that. Any additional comments on CEH Master?
Yeah, so the CEH Master, I think that's a good one. See, the thing is, just like you were saying, the OSCP is a gatekeeper. It's a door knocker. Same thing with the CEH, right? Just a few years ago, everyone would bash the CEH. And I was never part of that wagon, that bandwagon, let's bash it. The only thing I would not bash, but I would be like, hey man, I wish we had some labs to be associated with this certification, because just because you pass a 120 question exam doesn't really make you a hacker, or that just means you're a test taker. Because when I passed my CEH, I really still didn't know much. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know much still. I knew how to use it. I knew the tools to use for the job, but I didn't know how to use the tools on the job, if that made sense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to do enumeration, yeah, we can use Nmap, but I never used Nmap. So I knew how to connect the dots, but not practical. Oh, like smurfing and Bluetooth hacking. Till today, I never freaking hacked a Bluetooth. So it teaches you a lot of stuff about, what is it, like a mile wide and an inch deep? It's just so much info.
Yeah.
But then the master comes into play, where I think with the OSCP, even the EJPT, because it was more, okay, like now we have a hands-on, that we can have some questions because you can have a CEH, but if you want to get that master, then you have to go take a practical exam.
Yeah.
So I think they were pushing towards that because that's what everyone was doing.
Yeah, I think CEH, if I remember right, is multiple choice, isn't it? And
Yes.
that's why people bash it, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Go on, Patrick. Sorry, mate.
No, and that's the only one that I would say that's that way, because I don't know if this is actually video recorded or if it's only audio.
It's just audio. It's just audio, but we've got we've got the
But like I have CHFI, which is Certified Hacking Forensics Investigator. That certification I learned a boatload using Incase, using different forensic tools. And even though there wasn't a hands-on exam, it was multiple choice as well, but I learned more hands-on with that certification than I did with the CEH. And then I have ECSA and LPT. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, cool. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, Pat, but my kind of view on it is probably have a bit of a balanced approach. Say, I don't know, if you're very senior, HR buster might not be necessary for you, but if maybe you're more of the beginning of your career, it probably needs to be a balanced approach in terms of what's actually going to add the most value to my career in terms of self-development, and what's going to bust me through HR. So if you're in the early stages, perhaps OSCP, and then some of the stuff we've just talked about, like CEH Master, PMPT, obviously budgets apply, but maybe a bit of a balanced approach between a HR buster and something that genuinely is going to, even pairing like an OSCP with a CRTP or something like that. So you've got like a combination of something that's going to open doors and that's going to actually really teach you stuff and really test you.
Exactly. No, I think if you super beginner, like off the boat, you never touch security, obviously like having your security plus would be ideal, right? Even before even trying to jump into the practical stuff, because that at least will give you the understanding. Because sometimes, even on interviews, you're a recruiter, sometimes we'll still ask, okay, understand the CIA triad. What is the difference between, okay, I have integrity and availability here. Yes, this may be more on the blue team, on actual cybersecurity team in a company, but still having that understanding, because as a pen tester, if you take down a system, you're taking down their availability to work. So understanding still how the security framework or mindset or whatever you want to call it will make you that much better. So that's just my 2 cents. And then you can go into even having your network plus, right? Because remember, if we're talking about someone that's super green, going back to our Active Directory thing, like if I'm doing an Nmap scan, if I'm doing a full service port scan, and I don't understand, a TCP port versus a UDP, and these basic things for the OSI model, the TCP IP stack or whatever, how am I going to go if I'm looking at port 80 or posting get request in Burp Suite or whatever? How are we going to actually understand that data that's traversing when we don't even know how the network traverses data? Like when you go on your computer, when you go to Google, what is happening behind the scenes? A lot of people don't even know. They just say, oh, we went to Google. But instead of knowing and went to, before it even hits your router, it does something, right? It goes to your LM host file, to see where it's DNS. Then it goes out the route. It has the ways to travel through the network. And people probably can't even explain that. And that's where I think a lot of people can get in trouble because...
I think so. I think so. Even I know you've got a good understanding of both blue and red team, and I think to have that holistic understanding. Whenever, even if I'm speaking to a pen tester with 10 years experience, if I start getting those signs that, yeah, I'm red team only, not into anything else, that kind of raises alarm bells, because you're right what you're saying. If you've got zero understanding of the other side, it's definitely going to affect your ability to hack.
Exactly.
That's for sure. Yeah. And also, it's interesting to learn both sides.
Yeah. And that's what I think, like, I enjoyed that path. That's why I always recommend, okay, get into a help desk position, work for an MSP, work for a sysadmin, just so you can implement a few things and understand VMware, understand the cloud now and all this stuff. Now, and then get into networking, do some routing, do some switching, do some firewalls, do some of this stuff, because now as a pen tester, when you see, okay, oh, my Nmap scan is unfiltered. All right, now we can do a ARP scan. What is ARP? Just because ICMP is not allowing these requests because it's dropping at the firewall doesn't mean the device is down, right? So now we can say, okay, let me go ahead and further investigate and further. Now let's pop open Wireshark. Let's see it on the actual wire, and that'll get a lot of people lost.
Yeah, no. It sounds to me like what you're saying. When it comes to the learning methodology, there is no shortcuts. Like I say, you talk about AD, build the environment yourself. Talking about security, understand sysadmin, networking, blue team, red team. Try not to take shortcuts. Actually, just there's an old saying: either do it properly or don't do it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying, because I think it's super critical. There's some people that beg to differ. Like, they say different things. They have their own lane. Everyone has their own ways in life. And just like you were saying in the beginning of the call, right? Like about the gym. I have a specific physique, right? I have friends that have been working out for 15 years and they still have their chubs on their belly, right? It's just the way they are. So I always say, like, to them, don't compare yourself to the next bloke, right? You do you and let him do him. Like,
yeah.
So same thing in this world. Don't compare yourself. I'm never going to go on and say, man, I need to be like this person. I used to say, I want to learn as much as XYZ, not I want to be XYZ. So there's a difference. And in this community, I don't, let me knock on wood. So far, whomever I've reached out to, if there's any questions that I may have, which is, I'm pretty good at Googling, but if there's something that I have a dead end and I reach out to someone on my Discord or on LinkedIn or wherever, usually I'll get an answer or at least a direction in the right path. And that's what one thing I do love about this community. Versus the sysadmins, because there are a lot of selfishness over there. It's like my network and insecurities. It's, if you know my network, you're going to steal my job. But not in this world. At least, like I said, I haven't experienced that.
Do you know a key thing I think you've said just there? That you said, once I've Googled it, once you've basically done all the work yourself, if you're at a dead end. I think the mistake some people make is they reach out with questions and you're like, you could Google that in 3 seconds flat. I think some people do. I think so. That's a key point of what you just said there is, do your research first, do some recon first. If you're at a dead end, then ask. Then I think the response rate will be really good.
Exactly. And that's what, especially if you're interviewing someone, right? And if you're interviewing someone and if you're just saying, okay, like, easy questions. Okay, like, where do you get the latest news for the latest threats? And you can get some sense of, okay, they know how to research. They know how to stay up to par with the latest CVEs or the latest threats or latest 0 days and blah, blah, blah. And I would ask questions like that. Okay, like, you're at a dead end. Like right now, like, you tried everything, whatever, to invade that EDR. Like, you tried everything you can. What would you do next? Just to see their mindset where they say, Google or ask my colleague, to try to take a shortcut, try to look at forms, try to even set it up in your own environment to see if that attack really works still. And because maybe that attack works yesterday, but it's not going to work today. Or so that's so critical.
Yeah, no, thanks, Patrick. So before we jump into social engineering and physical engagements, we spoke before about setting up your own home lab for free. I know this can be great for self-development gains. Your hints, tips, tricks for setting up home labs, what would you say on that, Pat?
Yeah, so it all depends on what you want to do, right? We'll stick to the red team. We'll stick to that side of the house. I think it's three simple things you need. Maybe a Kali Linux VM. Maybe you can set up a pfSense firewall because it's virtual, and then a Windows server. And if you have the space and stuff like that, install a Windows 10 machine so you're not messing with malware and these kind of things on your local machine. That's all you need. Like literally, and all of those are for free. Windows, you can get the evaluation copies and just set it up at your home, and that's it. Pretty much. And then you can add on to it, right? Okay, now I want to have a Linux virtual machine, and you can download Metasploitable. You can download VulnHub machines. You can integrate that with your network, but that all depends on how powerful your machine is. So that,
yeah, so your home lab will very much be an ongoing process that is refined and improved, and it's a gradual build, if you like.
exactly.
Cool. Great. Okay. So yeah, moving on to physical engagements. I tend to find physical stuff. It's like people either love it or hate it. There's no in between. And the guys that love it, or girls that love it, seriously love it. I know it's something you like. I don't know if there's certain things. There probably is certain things you can and can't say, but I think maybe an entertaining place to start would be. I know you've been on some physical stuff lately. Can you tell us any cool stories or?
Yeah. So how a physical engagement, at least the way I do it, is going from the outside in, right? I'll go out to Google Maps, go look and see if there's look at their geo location, see if there's maybe any physical CCTV cameras, see if there's a physical security guard, see if there's man traps when you have to walk into the building, see if there's any side doors, if there's any hangout places to smoke a stogie and people in the break rooms. So that's what every single engagement, physical, whatever, you're going to do your reconnaissance, right? You're going to start with that. And once I have an overview of what I'm really working with, then I'll go ahead and move to my physical body going on site, right? Now I know what I'm working with. I know I've already done my recon, went on LinkedIn, I went on their website, did all that reconnaissance, right? So now I can pretend I'm Joe Blow, if it's the plumber or if it's coming in from Comcast saying, or your ISP, the internet's slow around here, I'm coming in just to check the lines. And 99% of people will say, if you're suited up and you're looking presentable, okay, sometimes they'll just walk you to the MDF or the server room, right? Say, hey, here it is. Please check it because my internet's always slow. 99% of people say their internet's slow. Meanwhile, they have 100 gigabytes of pipe space.
Yeah.
But so it was a recent, not that recent, but yeah, it was a recent engagement that's what I did. And then when I went on site, I played as an actor, and I was able to just get into an MDF. And the MDF had a key code, and it was super easy because the receptionist gave me the code just in case she went out to lunch. So she was like, oh, if you need the key code, it's XYZ elemental P, whatever it was. And I was like, okay, that was easy. Because I was thinking what I want to do is she's going to open the door and I'm going to put like a stopper, like when she leaves so I can keep the door like open. So I don't maybe put my book bag there or something just so I can have access in and out. And so that engagement was super easy, right? They failed really quick.
Yeah, they definitely did.
And so since it was so easy, then we just try to see what other restricted areas can we get into. I was able to get into the CFO's office of that company, and I wasn't able, he did lock his screen, so I wasn't able to like go into QuickBooks and whatever. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Then it was about 3 or 4 hours all in general. I was able to plug into their switch in their MDF, try to get some information and set up a span port, which is a mirrored port on the switch, because their default credentials were anonymous. Like you just go and telnet enter, and I was on that switch, so yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm getting from you there, you certainly don't want to be going in blind, and the recon's a massive part, I can imagine. I think even if it ties in with what you're saying about looking the part, being confident, being presumptuous, if you've done your recon, I can imagine it's a lot easier to turn up on site and be confident.
Mhm.
You know your way around and know what you're doing. Is there anything, Pat, that you do? Any resources you go to for physical stuff, or is it all what you just said, or is there any additional resources? Or
Yeah, there's always things like I have a flipper. I have a flipper zero, and this was another engagement. I was able to clone their badge. Did some badge cloning and used my flipper to get into the building. I don't smoke, so I just went into a smoking area. I almost died because I hate the smell of smoke. But I was close to someone shooting the stuff, shooting the shit, and I just had my flipper in my pocket. I had to get it to the right setting, and then once I was scanning, I was cloning his badge. And then once it was cloned, you can hit bing bing, and I can go in. I can save the badge,
wow.
and now I can go up to the front door. Click it with the save badge, and I was able to get into the building. There's other stuff like you can do like lock picking. I'm not very good at lock picking. I do have a lock picking kit, but that takes me way too long. I'm not good at that. And it's funny. 'Cause I'm from New York, and a lot of people always mess with me like, "Oh, you don't know how to rob houses?" But no, I guess I was never good at that.
Yeah, we won't go there, pal. That could be
Yeah,
controversial, but yeah.
yeah. So lock picking, you can obviously lock picking, but a lot of the physical stuff is shooting the stuff, social engineering, seeing if you can gather information from folks. But I guess it all depends on the rules of engagement of what we're allowed and disallowed to do, what's in scope and out of scope. Some people just say, I don't want you talking to my employees. I just want to see if you're able to get into the building. Can you pass this point? Let's see if our physical security guards will stop you. And obviously, this only applies to private entities, right? Because in the U.S., if it's a public building, a government building, we have First Amendment right, a press, right? We can record, we can walk in, we have the right. So they can call the cops. It's not trespassing. So we're not talking about that because we can walk
Okay.
into any building if that's the case. We're talking about more if you're walking into a law firm.
Yeah.
Okay, like you shouldn't be going into an attorney's office looking at their cases. But yeah, I just want to put that distinction in there.
Yeah, that's a massive point. If you're looking to get into physical stuff, probably a decent place to start would be obviously check each specific engagement as to what's in and out of scope, but check what's always going to be out of scope. Check what's like massively off limits where you're going to get yourself in bother. That's probably a good place to start. Yeah, cool. Okay, so you've given us. Yeah, I think have we covered everything on social engineering. I know we've done physical stuff. We've done loads on it. Have we covered everything on social engineering, or is there anything else? Or
So social engineering ties in with the physical stuff. And then it
Mm.
also ties into not I can just call a company or just try to send out phishing campaigns with different tools, like we were saying before. And yeah, just I'll just call and say, hey, like this is Joe Blow from IT. If it's a bigger company. Now, if Joe Blow is the only IT guy there and so, oh, this is not Joe Blow.
Yeah, he sat next to me.
Yeah, exactly. But I've called like hospitals, I've called large law firms, and just say this is Peter from the IT department, and I'm just calling to see. This is Rosemary, and hey, Rosemary, I see that you had an account lockout. Just don't lock your computer right now. Provide me with your credentials to see if I can make sure your credentials are working, so you don't lock yourself out and you have to call IT, and then I just have to do it anyway, quote unquote. And if they took their no before or their security awareness training or whatever they're using, they should never provide credentials, even to the IT person. So what they should do is put in a ticket, or putting some kind of thing into their ITSM system so they can legitimately see if Joe Blow is really in IT, not just give Joe Blow the credentials. But sometimes you get those, and I've never been the type to make it seem very obvious or urgent. Because I think when it's so urgent, oh my God, we just got, you need to give me, then it sounds a little, oh, calm down, son. Like,
Yeah.
hold your horses. So I'm usually just chill with it. Hey, Rosemary, I'm just calling from IT. I can see that you're on your machine right now. And if she says no, I'm like, okay, like, I guess your computer is open, I see. Oh, yeah, it's open. And if it's still not open, I'm like, oh, hopefully I'm on the right machine. So what is and then obviously you go down that rabbit hole, right? There's always a way to reverse engineer the human element of the human
Yeah.
psychology, right? So yeah, and that's pretty much, we can go into a whole rabbit hole with.
Yeah, but a bit kind of high level overview, just fairly chilled, relaxed pace, fairly monotone,
That's the way I do it. Yeah, you have some people overseas write these emails. Oh my God, you have to pay this now, or else your account. Like
It's too obvious.
I guess you can get this to like a 90-year-old lady that's in a panic. It's holy moly. Oh, I can't. That's where it becomes. It's unfortunate because those people. It's a different story. That's scammers and that's get overs. But in a pen testing world, what we're trying to do is just to make sure and educate the end user from not giving their credentials to the person out there that's with the ill intent.
Yeah, no, cool. Thanks, Pat. So the InfoSec Pat YouTube channel, I'm a subscriber. You've got 30,000
Thank you.
other subscribers. I know it's a great channel, but from your perspective, Pat, what can the listeners, for anyone that's not subscribing, we'll put a link to it in the show notes, by the way. I did a post about it the other day. It should be fairly easy for everyone to find. InfoSec Pat. What can the listeners expect to learn and gain from subscribing to the channel?
That's an awesome question. So right now, I'm going to start doing a lot more. All right, let me back up because I did get a strike on my channel. So I got a strike because I was showing people how to do Wi-Fi pen testing, and I was demonstrating on my own network. Like I always say, never condone or never use these tools to hack your neighbor or hack your girlfriend or whatever you're trying to do. Don't do it. Use these for educational purposes for you to learn and hack yourself. See if you're hackable. So when I got that strike, obviously I laid low on the pen testing, ethical hacking type content. So that's when I started going into checkpoint firewalls. So I do a lot of stuff. Like I do network security for friends and firewall management, firewall stuff. So I was like, okay, let me just do a playlist of checkpoint firewall training. And then I'll throw some stuff in, like the other day I just made how to become a red teamer. What kind of content or what kind of resources can you use out there to become a red teamer? Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, all these other, and we went into some of the certifications as well. And I can't go too deep into them because I don't have them myself. So that's a pet peeve of mine. I hate when people talk about a certification like they have it when they never took it, or if they failed it 6,000 times and they say, go get the certification today when you don't have it. That's something that drives me bonkers, but we'll leave that for another day. But yeah, I just think that's pretty much.
Yeah, I love it, Pax. It's basically all about self-development, being the best version of yourself when it comes to being a security professional or an offensive security professional. There's loads on there, isn't there? And you're not shy when it comes to getting in front of the camera and all that. It's got a kind of stimulation value as well to it.
Yeah, and to an extent, like sometimes it takes a few goes to on my channel. It's not like I just hit record and I'm like, yay guys, but like I'll mess up a few times still till today. Sometimes I'll forget what the topic that I want to talk about is. That's why I have 3 monitors and I have like my topic on the right. And I'm like, okay, we're going to be talking about, red teaming, or we're going to be talking about checkpoint firewall. We're going to be talking about installing management server today. Okay, cool. And then I'll hit the record and we'll go to town. But yeah, like walkthroughs, hack the box walkthroughs, try hack me stuff, VulnHub. I have Cisco stuff, VMware.
Stuff on ADs on there.
Yeah, stuff on AD. And and I always like to take recommendations like from my Discord or from my Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Like obviously if it's in my realm of space, right? Don't ask me to go write you a program to do this because I'm not a programmer. But if it's in my space, my niche, I'll absolutely help out and create a video and try to describe and demonstrate whatever I can.
Yeah, no, cool. I think the other thing as well, these days, I think since kind of COVID and stuff, he talks about making mistakes on the content and having to. I think it's since remote working's gone like totally everywhere. I almost think it's more acceptable to be a bit real. So if anyone is thinking about building a brand online to just help their employability, I think I used to say at the start of the pod when I first started, I'm going to try my best. I've never done this. I might make loads of mistakes, but I promise you, I'm going to do my very best to give you everything I've got. And I think it's just more acceptable now. People are a bit more real these days, I feel like.
No, yeah, and I agree. And I was very like self-conscious when I first started creating content. I'm like, man, like I made so many mistakes. I don't know what I'm like, not mistakes like doing what I'm doing, but making mistakes on like creating the content. Like for example, if we're going through installing something, I would say, yeah, and try to fill in the blanks with nonsense, right? Because I'm still not the best at editing. So now I have a friend that actually helps me out with the
Yeah.
edits.
Yeah.
But like before, like I would just sit the camera, wait till the thing installs. I didn't know how to chop so there's a 20-minute video. Meanwhile, I was talking for 10 minutes, right? So yeah, like that's so anyone that's out there that's trying to create videos and trying to be a content creator, influencer, whatever you want to, I don't even know. I just like to help people. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I just think about it from a recruitment perspective. It almost makes your resume because if I'm putting a candidate forward for a role and he or she's got a really active LinkedIn page, a YouTube channel, stuff going up, maybe they do stuff on Twitch. If you compare all that with a resume, I just think it bolsters the application big time. I know for a fact it does because I know from placements I've made where it's grabbed the client's attention. They've literally responded quicker to what I'm using. I think it makes a difference from an employability and just your profile when it comes to career progression. I
that's
think it's
definitely
really
true because I've said this on many videos or little interviews as well. Like before COVID, I was very anonymous, right? I didn't like the attention on the internet. I even said this, I didn't even have my government name anywhere on the internet. I used my Italian name, like what my name is in Italian, because I just didn't want people to, I was just very private, right?
mm, mm,
And yeah, and then when COVID hit, like I started making the YouTube videos because of a friend was like, put the videos that we're doing together on YouTube so it's other people can see them. That's when I was studying for the PCNSE, which is Palo Alto Certified Security and Engineer or whatever. And so I was like, okay, let's give this a jingle. And that's when I started doing that. And once I started like putting content out there and making little videos and showing my face and putting the face to the thing and making a Twitter account and having more of an online presence, I was getting a lot more hits. Like you said, recruiters, like I don't even have a resume anymore to be quite honest. I do have a resume, but LinkedIn is my resume. Like, and it's just, I try to be active on there. I try to help as many people. And since then, it's been phenomenal, the traction and the traffic that I've been getting. So
yeah,
it
no,
definitely
brilliant.
helps.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And also, Pat, it's win-win because it makes your profile or anyone's profile better that's doing it, but also the community get a lot from you as well. So it genuinely is a win-win concept, and I think it's no, listen, I think it's great. Wicked, Pat. So I know I promised you an hour. I've already kept you for longer, so sorry, mate.
It's all good.
I know you're a busy man. So we'll kind of, as we come towards the end, personally, what are your go-to learning resources, either at the minute or what have you had the biggest self-development gains out of in terms of online learning resources for offensive sec?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, like I said, I want to do the PMPT. I have been studying for the PMPT with some friends. So I'm using TCM's. I bought their access for their courses and I'm just studying their courses. Aside from that, I have a Cyberry. I have, what is the other one? Cyberry and Udemy. Getting Udemy courses if there's something that I want to learn. And also YouTube. There's a lot of free resources in YouTube. And yeah, LinkedIn Learning has some. I don't have access to that anymore, but when I was a contractor, when I worked for my old company, we had LinkedIn Learning, which was pretty cool. And that's another resource that I was using. And yeah, that's pretty much what I go to.
Yeah, no, cool. Is that something you do a lot? Do you study with friends a lot for certs? Is that kind of the norm for you?
So a lot of my certifications I didn't because a lot of my networking and all the other ones besides PCNSE, CIE, what other one? OSCP I did with a few people, and now the PMPT.
Mm.
But before that, like I said, I was always on my own. No one knew about me. I was just doing my own thing. Before 2020, no one knew me. So I just been in the game for about 3 years, trying networking with people, and that's where I'm like 3 years, 30,000 subscribers. I think hopefully it's not 10,000 a year. I don't. Hopefully I can get 100,000 before I'm freaking 50 years old. But
Yeah. No, but I think the compound effect, when you've got more, you get more because it just the algorithm loves you.
True. I believe so, because from like when I first started to get that first 1,000, holy smokes, it was like I was like, this is stupid. This is pointless. And then I didn't really look at it anymore. Still to today, like I don't really look at my stats and how many views. And I used to be very like about a year and a half ago, I was like, man, I'm only getting 10 views, 100 views. And I'm like, this is pointless. But at the end of the day, what ended up pushing me towards is okay, that 10 or 20 or 100 views, those people looked at that for a reason, and hopefully it was informative for them. And that's what I cared more about than just getting 6 million views, all these subscribers or whatever. And they just subscribe just because they have another one on their list. I don't know. I want someone that's going to actually watch the video and gather information from whatever I'm putting out.
Yeah, no, that's it. You've got to start somewhere. Just another thing, just to finish up, Pat, on this. I don't remember which pod it was, but I was listening to a pod with John Strand from Black Hills on, and someone was asking him what's his criteria when he's recruiting and stuff like that. And one of them was, what are they doing within the community? I think it's becoming like a thing. That, what are you giving back? What are you doing to pay forward? What are you doing to help others? I think it's a thing that employers, certainly within cybersecurity, are valuing more and more these days. I think it's that. I think that's another reason to do it as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely key. Like having that community and giving back and having your Discord channel and even contributing to other people's Discord and just being involved with the community.
mhm.
I think that's so critical for folks these days. But yeah,
Cool. Pat, if anyone wants to reach out, is that okay? If they want to reach out for any tips or anything
absolutely.
like that, what's the best place to get you? Would you say probably LinkedIn or something like that? Or
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect
mm,
with me on Instagram. Everything is pretty much at InfoSec Pat.
okay,
So Twitter, Instagram, obviously my YouTube channel. You can connect with me on there. Not really connect with me, subscribe, and actually write me an email if that's the case. But remember, before you ask a question, Google it. If it's something you can Google, I'm just going to tell you
yes,
go to Google. If you ask me
yeah,
how
no.
to install Kali Linux, because I get all these things, how do I install this?
Yeah,
Come on. But if it's something that you're stuck, if you're watching one of my videos and you're stuck, feel free to reach out and we can always jump on a call and I can watch your screen and see where you're stuck and push you through.
cool, brilliant, Pat. Thanks for your time, mate. This one's been really good. I knew it would be, and we'll wrap it up here. And I'm sure we'll speak soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you, folks.
thank you, mate. Cheers,
All right,
buddy.
cheers.